Good morning. Welcome to Community Voice.
Oh my
Y'all
God.
laugh too much around here.
No, laughter is good for the soul.
Good morning. Welcome to Community Voice. I'm your host, Keith Parris. I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Good morning, Debo. Good morning, Carvey. Good morning, Michelle.
What up, bruh?
Oh, man.
You know what else laughter do? Keep you from cussing these niggas out around
man.
here.
Oh, what my mommy
I just
said
gotta
about to
laugh,
lose
keep
what
them
little
quiet.
religion I got.
That's it.
So anyway, let me welcome everybody to the program. Let me get my bearings. So welcome to the program. You know, Michelle and I were discussing the difference, which is a program that we air here on Mondays, and so I received a text. Take a look at it. So now I'm looking at it. And
Oh, so you were the other viewer.
I was the other viewer.
Because it was two of us.
Would you stop?
I'm just saying.
Here we go.
But my reaction was one of, and Michelle never let me finish this on her program, but I'll finish it now.
Now that it's your program.
Now it's my program. I'm like, well, baby, I felt so bad for Will. Will just kept saying, look, can we end it on hope? No, you let that genie out the bottle, boy. It was just on and cracking. But here's if I can just be that guy at 35,000 feet, just for a moment. First of all, I believe the intelligence of the people who listen to WNOV, it is without peer. I know that people know when they hear nonsense, they're nonsense. And here's the other thing. How's a white woman able to use that word and we can't?
Oh, she said BS?
Oh, she said BS, and she
said
didn't
the
say
whole
BS. And so now Will has said, oh, we're going to have the FCC here down here. I'm going, but it's nonsense. So let me do this. I said this always whenever I see Anna Hodges.
Yeah.
I said to Anna, anybody that's talking about like Anna's my shero, right? I said, you know what Anna did? Anna they really messed over Anna. Anna had a choice, right? She could give in to her anger, or she can do the alternative, run and win. So I said, don't get mad, get elected. So I'd say the same thing. So let's just fact check this whole issue
Can
about.
I just say this though before you go? Because I think you can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think you can get mad and still get even. I think that you can voice your concerns and your frustrations about what people say that's ignorant and still be able to squash, through an intellectual way, blah, 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 whatever goes on. The idea, I think that what we do to our people sometimes and to people in general, people don't get an opportunity to voice their frustration and concerns. Now, if all you're doing is ranting and yelling and screaming and hollering, then that gets you nowhere. Mm-hmm. But there's something cathartic in being able to get out the frustration at, somebody consistently trying to call Black folks lazy, particularly when the person doing it is a Black woman, Charlene. So I'm just saying, you can do both. And that's why I said I get frustrated when I watch people talk about the way, Trayvon Martin gets killed, Tamir Rice gets killed, some Dontre Hamilton gets killed, and the media, they were so dignified in their grief. They were so and so. Don't try to define for me how I respond. And trust and believe, I know how to do both. I know how to be hot as a firecracker, but also to take care of this business, to counter what it was that you said and did that also was harmful. So I just always am of the position, and I also believe there's a time and a place. You pick which strategy works best for you. But I guess I get frustrated. Well, I'm lying. I don't guess. I know. I get frustrated when people like try to tell you like it's one way to skin a cat. It's not. But you're gonna catch this business from me. And that's why there's you to balance it out and do other stuff. But I just think you can do both. You can check somebody. Because sometimes you have to check people.
Well, let's check them with some facts.
Okay, go ahead.
So yesterday, and I don't know where the sister was getting her thing about the whole debilitating effects of public assistance. But that's a mantra. And I think someone evoked, either you mentioned it this morning, the welfare queen.
Yes.
So I went and I think folks, NPR, if you just go and put in welfare queen, NPR has a great article out there about this woman who nobody really even knows what her racial background was. This woman was just a criminal, period. All right. First of all, welfare fraud, 3%.
Actual fraud.
Across the board. When I worked food stamps, we had to have at least less than 5%, 6% error rate. The fraud rate is less than the error rate that's committed by the people who actually work the program. Actual fraud, 3%.
Nationwide?
Nationwide.
Okay.
I'm reading, taking this information from an article that was in the Revolt. It says that the majority of those folks who receive government assistance in the U.S. are not Black. Using research from the Urban Institute, gathering data from 59 million people, that's the number of people on welfare, this is as of 2019. The graph below presents the largest percentage of welfare recipients in 2019. The majority of recipients were white, 43%. This surprised me. Followed by Hispanics, 26%. And then by Blacks, 23%. But so we're not even, now I know we have to calibrate for percentage of population.
Right, that's what I was going to ask about.
But when we look at the big number,
right,
there are far more white people. As a matter of fact, when you look at it, you would have to combine both the Hispanic and Black population to equal the number of white folks, white recipients. Now, it is high in terms of percentage of your population that is at or below the poverty line. But the myth is that it is Black folks that's on welfare. That's why I thought was very interesting. I don't know if you mentioned Ron Howard when we were talking yesterday about Hillbilly Elegy, because when you read Hillbilly Elegy, it really is an indictment on the public assistance. And he wasn't talking about Black people. He was talking about, he being J.D. Vance, was talking about the debilitating effect he thought that public assistance had on poor white people, that it would take away their ambition, that once they get on. Now, we're not taking into effect or taking into consideration all the data that's driving this. And I think it's just easy for us to kind of go in. But when you're hearing this woman do this mantra, this goes back to 1976. It is what the Republicans have used to really just change public assistance as we know it, going from AFDC to TANF. No longer making AFDC an entitlement. That's a significant designation. If you go in and read Title IV of the Social Security Act, you can see where the language has been struck out in terms of entitlement. And now this allows you to put work requirements. It allows you to put time limits. And what we have discovered after 30 years of TANF is that the people who you find on TANF are people who really should be getting SSI. Okay. And the state doesn't want to pay out the SSI. The feds don't want to pay. So they sit there W-2. But 25% of that population back in 1995, 1996, we made the switch, was probably going to be on public assistance for the rest of their lives. The other 75% we discovered was working, had other forms of income. Look, people try to make $1 out of 15 cents. And if anybody thinks anybody's getting rich on public assistance, stop deceiving yourself.
You know, not just getting rich, but that is some breezy, comfortable life. You know, it takes a lot to be poor. It takes a lot to have, you know, fewer resources, fewer dollars, fewer access, you know, to goods and services. I mean, just the amount of lines you stand in and transportation issues. And I'm not saying that everybody that is low income, you may not have a car, you may not have, you know, decent housing, but like I was talking to somebody and their monthly income is $900 for everything that has to happen. And if you don't have subsidized housing, what are you doing in a whole household, even with one person, for $900 a month?
Right.
You know, so that whole image that, you know, you just sitting back looking like a fat cat, but then you never ever juxtapose that with white collar crime and the amount, millions and millions of dollars that get stolen every day in this country. But nobody talks about it in that way.
And I'm always amazed that when people embrace socialism in this country, And isn't right now Donald Trump is calling Kamala Harris
Right.
comrade Kamala. I mean, good man. This is, you should be spending time learning policy and stop trying to come up with these witty little one-liners.
Because he's appealing to the lowest common denominator.
Because he's lazy.
He's lazy, and the people
and he's not intellectually
him
curious. Right. And so
he know that they'll respond to a nickname rather than all of the policy.
To the policy. So the issue becomes, which leads me to Wednesday's word for tomorrow.
I was gonna say, is it Wednesday?
No, today's Tuesday.
Okay,
but I did it just. But I'll Wednesday's word tomorrow will be systemic, and I think that is the discussion that was not had. And I think it looks like the woman on the end,
Kelly,
probably had some experience with public assistance, and this is probably why she was kind of pushing back on. Now, wait a minute, that is not the case.
Why do you say that? I didn't get that.
I kind of got a sense because when she was going, when the sister was talking about people's attitudes on welfare, she was kind of looking like, I don't.
She was pushing back, but I thought she was pushing back like, because.
I don't know what her background is.
I was just thinking, and it's funny that we both came away with kind of different reasons why the pushback, because I just thought it seemed like she was somebody that was trying to stay more in the center. Mm-hmm. And not, insult people or throw people under the bus, or like, look, you're not helping us make the case here. So that was interesting that you walked away with maybe actually had experience with
some, and I think a lot of times what informs our lives are our lived experiences, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to kind of disassociate myself with what I've experienced in my life. When it comes to public assistance, I spent my entire professional life dealing with public assistance.
Right.
And so when people kind of have these images and the myths, like one of the things I talk about it all the time, women were having more babies to get more money. Okay. She did have another baby. She did get more money, but she did have another baby. She gonna need more money. Now, here's the argument I would make. It wasn't an incentive for women to get pregnant, but there wasn't a disincentive for them not to get pregnant. And so I can give this, and this is anecdotal. There were a lot of people I worked with when I worked at the Department of Health and Human Services, worked in our division, worked in our department, who in fact were former welfare recipients themselves. And you would find that when people realize that there's an economic sanction tied to possible pregnancy, it's a different look. That's the power of 1960 and the inception of the pill.
Tell people what you mean by an economic sanction.
An economic sanction means a cost to you over and beyond what your normal cost would be. If you have another child, it costs more money, and they're not scaling up based on the age of the child, because all the children are getting older, right? They just base it on you have another child. So people then ran with that. Black people ran with that. That's why I think it's important. How we have discussions a lot of times becomes key, because we're saying things and people said it was just like, what's her name? Nada?
Who, Pernina?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Her same thing. Well, you got black people, and then now she changed it from black people to Democrats are running cities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So was a Democrat running the city where the young boy went in and shot 4 people? Chances are they weren't. So when I'm saying that's violent crime.
Even if they are running, because the black woman, Charlene, said, well, who's been running stuff for the last 12 years? Democrats. And it's just like, so what?
Nationally, we have not been.
I mean, but it's just like, ma'am, like Obama takes over in 2008 and we about to fall off a cliff. Biden takes over and we off the cliff. Both coming out of receivership of Republican controlled governments. Mm-hmm. So it's just like we all are complicit. Everybody got a role to play in some of the stuff that's going on. But she just kept, and that grin on her face. I was like, Lord, I'm going to jail, because, just this who's been in control. It's like, do you not like, when did your government education class start? It started in 2012. It started in 2016. Like, do you not understand the totality of our system and how we get to this point, how we get here? So that was my frustration in listening to the conversation yesterday. But Pernita Nathans, because I told somebody, I said Keith even got hot with her when she was on your show.
Only one or two people.
And I said I've never seen Keith get hot.
I just couldn't, because I knew what it was, and that was such a contrast because he had Kamaleith.
Yeah.
And this idea, and then this idea that people come here. My grandfather came to Milwaukee to work and to work hard. I think Will kind of alluded to that when he was talking about union jobs,
right?
And that people came here, so they wouldn't come here. Now, have we had in the city of Milwaukee a portion of the population to move from one area to come to the other area because of the generous welfare benefits? I have to acknowledge that. I really do. But what they quickly discovered was, you get a little bit more money, but then you got to deal with the high energy cost that you live in a city like Milwaukee. Try to find housing based on what you're talking about, $900 a month. Try to do that. So the whole systemic things that are still out there. And I think that one of the other things the woman said, the woman who was sitting next to Charlene, she was saying that, and I don't know why Republicans always start talking about this idea of unity. What? Wait a minute. It's like we need to have the conversation about race. We've been talking about race since we got here. It is not a conversation about race. We have to move on. And here's the thing, and I think Craig kind of mentioned it. Craig always says, do not underestimate white superiority.
Right.
As a mindset.
Absolutely.
You can't, we can say, no, it is there. I was just reading something this morning on John Spurgeon and Billy Graham. Spurgeon, anybody who's familiar with religion knows this guy's this great commentator, right? A great preacher back in the 19th century. They said he came out against slavery, but he did not come out against white supremacy. So then they talked about Billy Graham. They said, well, Billy Graham at a rally, he took down the ropes for segregation, but he didn't push back on the systemic racism, right? That is the difference. So we can have conversations, but if conversations don't lead to action, they're just what you're talking about. It's a cathartic experience. And here's the other thing. John Deere doesn't see black people as a significant part of its market share. Harley Davidson doesn't. Now, I don't know about Jack Daniels, but it's easy for them to do. And a lot of these initiatives happen after George Floyd. And that sugar high is worn off, if I could use the term used. But it has. I mean, because in America, we need to, we back to where we were prior to George Floyd.
And in some cases, we're actually worse.
Worse, right. And the fact that I'm still talking about white supremacy in 2024, that's what drives it, yeah.
And then just as I walk out the door, the one woman said, this is about faith, freedom, and something else. It was 3 little words. And I said, well, whose faith?
Yeah.
Whose freedom? And I can't remember the third. But none of those things lined up with me.
I know we got to go break, but real quick, Judge Mathis's, even though he's getting a divorce.
He said he's working on it. Go ahead.
His son is getting married.
Yeah, and he caught backlash.
Oh, man, I just pulled it up.
Because he supported his gay son.
Who's marrying Elliot?
Yeah, I know. But they
wore him.
I'm glad. I'm gonna bring that up later, but I'm glad you brought that up. But
because all the homophobia, and then use religion.
I saw it in the quotes. They're quoting scripture.
And so when Parina said that the problem with the Democratic Party is that they don't know how to define what a woman is, the Democratic Party shouldn't be defining what a woman is. Science defines what a woman is, not the church, not religion, not government. Science determines what a person's gender is, not your feelings. Won't you come? All right.
Will there be one?
Will there be one? You listen to Community Voice. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
I feel like I'm finished.
Just a couple cleanups. My wife calls it intellectual diarrhea, where I can just get on and talk, and then every now and then you go back and go, was that right? I was talking to Brother Byron, what was his name? Guy, I can't think of his name. The trumpeter who's coming to town for MSO, for MSO, for Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra, Stripling. And we were talking about, because one of the things he's doing is, the first segment is when the Saints go marching in. That'll be the weekend of the 20th. And then he'll be back in March, and he was doing Twist and Shout, and not a tribute, but the influences of the Beatles. And when I looked at the song, because me and my buddy had just been talking about it, Stripling. Yeah, Mr. Byron Stripling. When I was looking at I was going, wow. So me and my buddy was talking. And when I was talking to him, I asked him, I said, but didn't the Isley Brothers do Twist and Shout? And so I went and looked up. They actually did. The Isley Brothers version of Twist and Shout was done in 1962. The Beatles version came out in 1963. Now, the Isley Brothers didn't write the song, but yeah, they did record it in 1962 prior to the Beatles. And then I was having a conversation with Erica Woods, and we were talking about someone that she just really admired, who's a graduate of Howard's School of Fine Arts, Al Freeman Jr. And I was trying to figure out, because the first time I remember seeing him was in a soap opera. And he was in Days of Our Lives. That's where he got his start. And I was correct. He did play the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in Malcolm X. So tried to, as much as I can, try not to do bad information. Sometimes you're on a roll and you're just kind of throwing stuff out, and then it bothers me. And so, I don't know if people believe this, but after programs, I really do go and fact check myself to make sure that I didn't put bad information out there. So it's just a question of facts. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. We're inside Be Healthy, Be You. Miss Julia Means and Miss Brenda Buchanan of Ascension, Wisconsin. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning. James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones. He said that he only got $2,000 for being Darth Vader.
Wow. And if anything you remember about that movie is Darth Vader.
He's also the voice of CNN. And I see that Debo pulled up Claudine, which was I think because I'm just a big Diane Carroll fan.
That was a great movie.
Miss Diane Carroll. I don't know how a woman, you looked at that woman, you going like, wow, she's on welfare.
Yeah.
She had 5 kids. Yeah, but no, James Earl Jones. And the first time I became familiar with him is when the movie The Great White Hope came out. He had did that on Broadway. And he's one of the great actors of our lifetime. And Michelle was talking a little bit about his backstory. The fact that he stuttered. And then when he was moved from Mississippi to Michigan, he just stopped talking. And it wasn't until he got to high school and there was a drama teacher there who got him into where he was able to go out. I say this anytime about many of your public speakers. Many of us are dealing with some type of, or could have dealt with some type of speech issue. That a lot of time drives you to want to get up and to do that kind of public speaking. I don't know if any of you guys remember the country singer. I think he's still alive. Mel Tillis. Mel Tillis, great country singer. But Mel Tillis had a stammer that was just incredible, except when he sang. You know who else? Andre Crouch.
Oh, really?
Andre Crouch had a speech impediment. And I mean, stuttered, stammered. I mean, he was talking to just be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But he said when he sang, it was very different. And so I think he ended up going to speech pathology, helping him. I know Mel Tillis did. And then there was just another person just died who had a speech impediment. Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
has a stutter. So when you think about a lot of people, when you're we overcome that. I think it's something you become very conscious of in terms of being able to. I tell people I spent 3 years in speech pathology when I was in elementary school.
Really?
Yeah, and so I can understand that, and then from time to time it happens with me. I have to be a little bit more purposeful in my speaking, and I'm not even going to talk about certain words that just ain't gonna happen, Captain.
Well, the health piece to that is we always promote our young ladies to make sure that their children get the services that they need. And a lot of times we used to have a program where we would go and screen children so that they could get the services in birth to 3 and before they get to school so they don't fall behind. And speech pathologists and our physical therapists
Occupational therapy.
they can tell if a child is behind, and so we have great specialty services in Milwaukee, but you got to take them there, or you got to sign them up. They'll come to your house, but you got to sign them up and make sure your children get what they need.
And I think that it really depends on part of how we learn how to speak is the environments that we're in, right?
So true.
And how people are speaking is what kids are hearing. And so then, of course, you imitate speech patterns. That's what you do. That's part of.
That's why some little kids can cuss you out like that.
Right, they can say them words.
You go, what? That came from you? That's because they heard somebody.
My mother got wind that I had cussed this little girl out.
Did you?
Yes. So my grandmother lived on First and Wright. My grandmother had told my mother what had happened, and Charles Spurgeon. I'm sorry, it's Charles Spurgeon, not John. Okay. That I had cussed this little girl out. Well, I didn't cuss her out, but I used a word. I called her the B word.
Oh.
I don't even know where I knew that word. So anyway, my mom lived on first. My grandmother lived on First and Wright. We lived on Second and Center. So my mom came pick us up after she got off of work. We're walking to the house. My mother is cussing me out. And then my mother asked me, I don't even know where you learned those words.
She's cussing you out.
You look back.
Me either.
You're like,
me
yeah,
either.
you're not going to say, I know where I got them from.
Don't mind the woman behind the curtain.
Yes.
But no, I think that, and I think the other thing is how early do we expose our kids to words? And I understand that usually you should be able to form some words about 18 months. Girls, boys are a little bit more delayed in their speaking. But to be able, so how you talk to your kids, what you expose them to, the words that you expose them to.
We encourage them to use real words and not just ask yes or no questions.
Yeah.
So that they learn to use real words and that goo goo gaga,
No,
we want to.
No, we do multisyllabic words when you're like 6 months. But it was when Kennedy was at her. She was in K3. Yeah, she was in K3. They would tell her use your words. And I hope this is anecdotal, but the white kids tended to use more words. They're exposed to more words. Kennedy is very fortunate because she's exposed to a lot of words, a lot of books, a lot of reading, but that's something we don't do.
Now
don't always do.
Nowadays, white children are missing just as much, and that's because of the phones, and more parents are attuned to their phones than what they used to be, so that they're not talking to their children as much as they used to. So white children are also not getting what they need. And so we need to read to our children. We tell the moms to read while you're pregnant, and they will recognize your voice the more you talk to your child as you're pregnant, and the dad, to read to them and sing songs, and and really engage your children in speech. The mere fact that they see you reading a book is teaching them something. They know that a book opens this way and the pages turn that way, and they're learning things that we don't think our children are watching. But nowadays we just get kids a
tablet.
phone.
Well,
Or
I
a
mean,
tablet,
but our generation was the television.
Yeah.
Television raised a lot of kids.
Yeah.
But
But for us, we didn't have, I mean, first of all, they were not me. I didn't really get to watch much TV, but
You missed a lot.
I didn't want to because I wanted to be outside. But there was limited things on TV that you could watch. I mean, it was adult programming all the time,
But
except Saturday morning.
context of time,
Mm-hmm.
based on where we are in terms of availability of information,
Mm-hmm.
the availability of information then it's far less than now.
Mm-hmm.
correct.
So the kids are on that level based on what they're exposed to in terms of the level of information.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So when we do it, we always have to do in context. Oh, they got so much more now. Well, relatively speaking, we did, because my mother would tell me stories about them listening to programs on the radio.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
You know,
remember.
so
Mhm.
I mean, and then for us,
Every year,
we were-
every generation.
Mhm.
But what you have to be careful about, the children that are on these tablets and everything, they're seeing stuff through YouTube, whereas our children watch Sesame Street and Electric Company, and we
Mhm.
had more educational focus. Now on YouTube, you don't know what they gonna see, and they be
well,
watching.
no, you have most. I think most of the parents go in. You can go in and do it, calibrate in such a way that they can't get
Sure,
to,
they can't get to
they
certain
can't
things.
get to adult content. So what they're getting is, at one point, we don't know what language Kennedy was speaking, because it was Eastern European,
Yeah,
and she was
watching some program
and listening to the
that-
words,
Mhm.
which is great, because in America, the one thing we don't put an emphasis on is learning languages other
But you
than
didn't know what
English.
they were saying.
And she didn't
They
either.
learn
So
just like they learn from us what those words mean. They're catching it on there. But there's a difference between having great content, letting your children look at your phone, having a tablet, and having limited time. But for some kids, that's what they do all day, and it's not necessarily good content that they're learning from. I mean, they're learning things, but maybe not what we'd like them to learn. So
but do
having,
you think, I mean, you're both parents, I'm not.
Mhm.
There's probably age appropriate things that you want your kids to be exposed to when it's age appropriate. I'm
Mhm.
clear on that. But just in general information, in general curiosity, the more they're exposed to, I think the more well-rounded you are as a person.
I agree, but I think we need to know what our kids are being exposed
course.
to, and a lot of the times we don't, because they're just doing what they want to do. Now, yes, there are many parents that block certain content and that, but there's many that don't. I've taken phones from kids that are watching stuff I shouldn't even be watching. So you do have to be careful. Now, in contrast, these kids can get a phone at 2 years old and work it better than I can. They because that's how they've learned. But we need a balance of that. We don't want our phones and our TVs to be occupying our children because we don't want to interact with them, because we just want to do our own thing and not really spend time with our kids. They need to spend time with us. And then we were talking about walking, and I mean, not walking, but speech. Part of our speech too is how we develop physically, these muscles in here. So when kids are learning to crawl and do things like that, that also develops those muscles for them to be able to speak. And so when you have kids that don't crawl, or we pick them up all the time, they don't develop some of those muscles they need to speak
Mhm.
adequately. So that's part of the therapy too, is building up those muscles so that they can speak.
Caller, welcome to the program. Good morning.
Yes, I got some information. I know quite a bit about stuttering, being one. But one thing that I know would be interesting to you is that one of the most famous stutterers that people don't realize because they don't read the Bible as much as they should is Moses. Moses was a stutterer. When he met with God and he asked God, he says, with God, why choose me to be your spokesman? For I am confused of speech. He was a stutterer.
Mhm.
And a lot of people know it. That's why God told him, I will tell you, and your brother Aaron will speak for you.
Mhm.
And that's why Moses was standing there, you know, with his flowing robes and his hair and his beard, and Aaron would do the speaking for Moses. Another
Yes.
famous stutterer was Thomas Jefferson. He was another one.
Hmm.
Now, I know you talk about Mel Tillis because the way the brain is constructed, when people sing, they don't stutter. Another thing they don't stutter is when they curse. That's why the King's Speech was rated R, because when the king had to when the new king had to go on the radio, he had to get speech therapy. And one thing that they do is that, like for instance, one trick is to put coins in your pocket or tap your thigh, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what that does is that rhythmic thing puts over into the other part of your brain, so that you don't stutter.
Well, how did you learn your alphabets?
And I ended up you talking about drama class. I ended up going to drama class because you want to surmount this problem. So I went to drama class, and I also ended up being captain of the debate team. And those things there, but like I said, just like James Earl Jones, by trying to surmount that, you go past that. So once I learned how to speak and not stutter, you know, now I won't shut up.
Oh, you know, the name that it hit me was Bill Walton.
Oh.
Bill Walton had an incredible, when he was in college, his first couple of years in the pros, he had an incredible stutter. He got it straight, and then you couldn't shut him up.
Mhm.
It was just kind of like, okay, and may he rest in peace.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I think that we overcome. But I was saying, like, it sounded like what you just did, that 1, 2, 3, 4 is iambic pentameter, which is one of the most basic rhythmic things that we do. But how do we learn our alphabets?
A, B, C,
You
D,
sang it.
E, F, G.
You sang it because the rhythm is easier for us to do things. You would have, when people were doing certain type of teaching, where they would actually have a song,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because then people are able to remember it. I mean, there are commercials that
Jingles.
we remember, jingles based on
to this day.
to this
Yeah.
day,
To this
Mhm.
day.
you know, and so it's part
L-
of that ability to be able to
LF
speak.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of it,
LFT.
which complicates speech then for descendants of enslaved Africans, is that that whole code switching thing that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
So not only now do you need to learn how to speak, is what's appropriate in this environment in terms of a speech pattern. And so you would hear, I know I heard it growing up, I didn't care. You talk like a white boy. No, I speak to be understood. And I'm in an environment where and it's interesting when you talk about Moses, because one of the things they said that part of this, if you look at it, just take it from a different lens, was that culturally he grew up in the house of Pharaoh. He didn't grow up with Hebrews.
Right.
And so when he starts talking about that stutter, that stammer, it was that he didn't clearly understand a lot of the language because he didn't grow up with that language. So I think that was also part of it too. There was this whole cultural barrier there based on where he grew up and then the people that he was leading, and to be able to do it in such a way where now, and so he couldn't, but Aaron did. And so then Aaron was better equipped to speak to people because of that cultural environment. So, you know, both ways, but I always found that fascinating. But I do understand that culture has a lot to do with how we speak, how we learn how to speak.
Hello.
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 Yeah. Another thing about you're talking about James Earl Jones. He the first Conan movie, he played Thulsa Doom. He was the villain in that movie.
Right.
You know, and people, I mean, he played a lot of roles, and his brother was no slouch either. His brother was his brother was in The Sting with Robert Redford.
Yeah, and his dad was an actor. That's why his dad left the family to pursue a career in boxing and acting. And so when he moved to New York, he reunited with his dad, ended up living with his dad in New York when he first started doing the play. It's how we I don't say this is going to sound really weird, but when people, you were talking about the young man who was talking to me at the park, and on the air, I seem to be like one of the most engaging, open people in the world, right? And then when you get me in private, because of some things that I deal with, I'm almost a mute. People's like pulling teeth, getting me to talk. So part of that is, I'm able to do this, but then on the inside of me, I know I'm still dealing with my levels of insecurity. I know I'm dealing with those things that are there, in my mind. And certainly I can fall back into bad speech patterns. I mean, it's always there for me.
Yeah. But one last thing, we talking about iambic pentameter and 1, 2, 3, 4. They believe that's based upon our heartbeat. That's the first rhythm that we learn. Boom, 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 boom,
Right.
boom, 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 boom. And if you look at music, all that is based on that. It's based on a heart rate. Well, all right. See you all. I'm going to get back to listening to you all.
I appreciate you. Thank you. And thank you for the input. But he's right. And I think that we don't look at speech sometimes as a health issue. But it really is, and our ability to be able to communicate is very important. I could never which makes her an amazing person. But Helen Keller,
She was naughty too, though. I mean,
she might not have been able to see or hear, but that'd mean that she wasn't.
she was naughty. That's why the teacher came in and like, you can't do that. So a lot
The
of
late
times.
Anne Bancroft. She won an Academy Award for that.
Yeah,
Miracle
she
Worker.
did a good job. But, a lot of times when children have special needs, we tend to let them do whatever we want them to do,
Right.
whatever they want to do, when they can learn. And we need to teach them so they can live their life the fullest. We had a young man at our church. He had some cognitive disability, but you know what? He graduated from high school and he retired from a job. But he lived his best life.
Right. And then you have other things and getting into learning disabilities. Learning disabilities are not necessarily issues around one's cognitive ability, one's intellectual ability. It's how one learns.
Yes.
And we, because just as big as one size fits all.
Yes.
And we were talking about special ed and how you put disruptive students in special ed. But there's nothing in there that's special to help them learn how to modify their behavior. And so what you do is you just pull them away, isolate them from disturbing other people who might be there trying to learn.
And I find with some of the people we work, it's hard for them to get their children help because they don't want to admit that their child needs help, or I don't want them labeled. But sometimes labeling gets them the need.
There's something wrong with that, boy.
That's right. They get then the services that they need, right? Without a diagnosis, they don't get the services that they need.
Correct.
But that's like, we have some that we've been for years, we're constantly, and we know that this child or children have issues, and that sets them up to not be good functional adults. And so it's important.
A little bit different with boys than it is with girls. I pointed out that when I can remember when I was still in public school, because we didn't have special ed at the school I went to, high school, but you never saw girls in special ed. What we call special C, then you didn't see girls.
And they used to always be in the basement.
Yeah,
Special C was always in the basement.
Yeah, if your grade school was in the basement, Parkman had a whole the west side,
a whole wing,
a whole wing over there.
And that's not funny. I mean,
and it was dangerous because you had to get through there to get the music. It was dangerous.
Hey, what you looking at?
What you looking at? Or I can remember, because you see buses now. But those of us who went to MPS back in the day, the only people on yellow buses
was special,
right? Those
Door
are
to door.
door to door. That's where you got that whole joke about the short bus, right? Like it was, and all those things probably led to a certain stigmatizing
Right.
of that is I mean, you learn differently.
Mhm. They still make jokes. Oh, he rode the short
The
bus.
short bus, because that's what the short bus was used for, right?
Right.
The big bus was regular students.
Mhm.
Not necessarily true. I rode the short bus, and it was because it was only a few of us.
Right. Well, that was the same with my son too. Was he
When I
went
went to
to
school in Wauwatosa, Whitman. It was only 10 of us,
Yeah.
so they didn't send the big long bus. They sent the short
You
bus.
Right.
still
Yeah.
caught it, didn't you?
Yeah, I caught it. But
I
I'm also very defensive
They
about
didn't
it as well.
know.
right. Yeah.
Very
That you wasn't
defensive.
special.
At one department, and I wasn't on the West Wing.
Right. Yeah, I know. When my son he got bused to gold in my ear when he was in elementary school, and we lived on the far northwest side at that time. And the first day the bus picked him up because there's 6 kids, right? And it was a little short bus. You should have saw his face.
Mama.
I'm like, look, boy, I can't drive you to school every day and pick you up. You better get on
Yeah.
that bus.
The whole time I went there was that little short bus. They never did send the big bus. It was only 10 of us.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, now we know. Sorry about that.
Now we
man.
know that's
We was
different.
giving you a hard time. We didn't know.
Oh,
We needed
but no, I agree.
So
Back
I'm
in
not GTO.
You know, no, you just very special.
Yeah.
You just very. But no, I mean, you saw. It was funny because I used to joke. I was the only kid with a bus pass who was in the special seat because I had to go pick up my sister.
Oh.
You know, and then Gary, he got bused from Victor Burger because Victor Burger was overcrowded, and so you saw 4 buses for the kids who were going to McKinley
Mhm.
because they rented out space there, and then the kids who went to Cass, and they would be on the bus in the morning. You know, we see them get on the bus, but then that little short bus,
Mhm.
that was
Yeah. You know, we have to try and motivate our moms to get the babies in to get the services that they need. And like Brenda said, a lot of them won't because they're in denial or they don't follow through. But if you smoke weed through your whole pregnancy or did other
But a lot of it is you'll hear people say that they don't want their child's label
right.
Mhm.
because that'll follow them the rest of their lives. So I mean that's what I always hear. It's not that they're in denial. They may see it, but they don't want the label
but
to
they
follow
need
their
the
child.
label
In order to
the
get the services. Yeah.
You know,
And
we
and
need
you
the
know, and that used
diagnosis.
to yes. And that used to be
that
such a
comes with-
bad thing. But I think
Because we-
but you know, like when you're talking about what we used to do with what we'd call special needs kids, the focus has changed. You know, they're
Yes.
mainstreamed. It's
yes, they
it's
are.
very different. So, but that label is what allows you to get all of those services that you need to help you move forward and be better, right? And so they get a lot of heat from family too. You know, you're not going to do that. The same we see with mental illness. You don't want that. You don't want him labeled with
them white folk in your
ADHD or
business.
that, right?
'Cause that's what
Right.
it comes
That's what
down
I
to.
hear a lot.
You don't want them
Yeah.
white folks in your business.
I'm
Yeah.
so tired of black folks not wanting white folks in there. Like
Because they in our business no
right.
matter how
And then my
much.
mama, I used to say, Mama, Francine in my business. My mama said, you ain't got no business. You got no business. He told you your business.
Mind your business.
Like you got some business. You ain't got no business. But I think, that's the whole health thing. I think even we deal with issues of mental health,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you're right. Denial is usually is that the first
Mhm,
first step
mhm.
in grieving, getting
Yep.
bad news is
Yep.
denial.
Denial.
And so, you know, and then the other thing, what did I do wrong?
Mhm.
Sometimes
Right.
it's just that's why I think we need to have more science-based conversations. And I think that when it gets into other things, we get away from the importance of this is usually biology.
Mhm.
There are some environmental things, right? But be able to talk about it in such a way, because I think once we start putting things in religious terms or personal value terms, you start moving away from the science. And we do that at our own peril. We're inside Be Healthy, Be You. Miss Julia Means, Miss Brenda Buchanan, Ascension, Wisconsin. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Yeah, Keith.
Good morning.
Hey, Keith.
Good morning.
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well. You were talking about speech patterns of, and my assumption is, of course, you're black. But I'm saying when they would say that you talk like a white guy or something like that, that was very upsetting. Especially when you go to different parts of the country and you hear how some of the people, especially when you go to college, you see how some of the black people are talking. Did you notice that when you went to Maryland and everything?
Yeah, Maryland had his own accent. Pennsylvania had his own accent. Virginia did. But let me point this little thing out. And I discovered this when I started working on the South Side here. Some of the speech patterns you would hear from certain different ethnic groups, European ethnic groups, were similar to some of the speech patterns you would hear from descendants of enslaved Africans.
Yes.
Right. So it really, your environment has a lot to do with how you speak, how one speaks, the language they use, what it sounds like. I don't know how much of it is like, do you have different vocal cords than white folks? No, it's what we're hearing and what we're imitating in terms of, that's how kids learn, right? Observation in spite of direct instruction, but there's also just observation. You hear what you hear in the environment, and that's what you begin to sound like. So if I'm in a predominantly black environment, I put myself in a predominantly white environment because the speech patterns in that environment is going to be different, not better, different. That's how I'm going to speak. That's my environment.
I understand that. Let me tell you, did you ever hear this? I was told that when the black kids and the white kids, this is like in the slavery was going on, that they were, the white kids were picking up how the black kids were talking. And of course they weren't speaking probably correct English. And they said they would have to send them up north to Boston to get educated so they can so they could learn how to speak, I guess, correct English. Because a lot of the white people weren't even speaking correct English in the southern states. Because the black people, when they came over, when our people came over, they had to, I mean, when you're learning a language, you're just speaking the language that the person is who's speaking. I mean, a lot of the white people, I mean, one another thing I want to ask you too. What about that southern dialect? Have you figured that one out? Where does that really come from?
Well, I think a lot of it,
Southern England or where?
Well, it's the Scott Irish, the Anglo-Saxons. Those folks came, and what you call like Appalachia, the South. A lot of those folks are descendants. You also had a French influence. You also had a Spanish influence. So in America, we have this hodgepodge of different cultures and languages that all kind of come together, and depending where you are. One of the fascinating things about what a lot of things that we might think is African culture, sometimes is Scott Irish culture. That's
Really?
why when you would hear people in the South talk about the blues and country western, they would say that they influenced each other because of the proximity of people. And it was funny you were talking about early, because they talked about when black and whites were still worshiping together, how those two styles kind of merged. So, and I call it religious porn, but watch Jimmy Swaggart. Watch Jimmy Swaggart. Watch how they preach. Listen to the songs and how they do their songs. And you will see a similarity between the way that descendants of enslaved Africans did it, because they were all influenced by all these different kind of cultural things. You had the Africans and their drums and that rhythm that came with that. So I tell people a lot of times, and hey, I don't know what's up with the CMA. If this woman's song went to #1 on the country, why aren't you honoring her? I'm not gonna say racism. So so no, I think, but those influences are there, and depending on where you are, how you speak. In New York, I could never figure out that accent for black people in New York until you understand the demographics of the African descendants in New York. They come from the Caribbean, heavy from Puerto Rico, from Jamaica, and they all come together. And so when you hear that, because the number of West Indians that moved to New York so that sound was based on, again, them coming from the West Indies, coming in. Boston, when you look at that population, a significant portion of that African descendant population is from the Caribbean. And so you have
Let me
all
ask you a question. What is that? I mean, like, I do remember when Barack Obama was talking, and Harry Reid made the statement like he doesn't have a Negro dialect. I don't know what they were talking about.
I do.
How is a black person supposed to talk anyway?
Well,
I mean, like the way
Barack
you talk
Obama didn't grow up in a black
Wisconsin,
environment.
The way you, yeah, I know the way you talk in Wisconsin and Milwaukee, that's totally different than the way they would talk in D.C. or they would talk in, I guess, Texas and West Texas. I mean, where do your influences come from? The black people there?
I think more Midwest. It was when I went to school in Nashville for a year, and then I went to school in Maryland. And the interesting thing was Maryland's below the Mason-Dixon line. So Maryland is really, even though it was a so-called border state during the Civil War, it was also a southern state. And so you could hear that. You can hear that southern. And then I come from the Midwest. Technically, in the Midwest, we don't have accents. What we do is just different. And then coming from Milwaukee, where there is an incredible Germanic influence, that would also impact speech patterns too, in terms of what we sound like and the whole thing. So I agree. I think that there are all these things that kind of go into it. I don't know what it is to sound black. And I think that when we do that, or what it is to sound white, I mean, I think it depends on who's speaking, their environment, what their upbringing was. That's going to have a whole lot to do with your speech patterns. But then for descendants of enslaved Africans, before we went to the term code switching, there was the telephone voice. Remember the telephone voice? And I got a great telephone voice story. I was part of my job after I graduated from Mount St. Mary's was I was a recruiter and I was a retention guy. So kids who would come in, who might come in on probation or need type of remedial support, that was my level of responsibility. So there was a young man from Long Island. The kid had something like 1,500 on the SAT scores, but he was barely a C student. So even though he had that, he's going to probably come in near probation. And so I'm talking to his parents. And then, of course, then you come down for your interview. So they come down for the interview. And the mother and the child comes in. And she's speaking with the secretary. And she goes, I'm here to see Mr. Parris. And I could hear the secretary as I was walking out. She's going, he just walked by. And she had this look on her face. That's not Mr. Parris.
Yeah,
it is Mr. Parris. You learn, and we can tell, we can listen, but then sometimes you really can't. You can be deceived. You know, like there are descendants of Europeans who grew up in a predominantly black environment. We think they sound alike. Everybody on their block, right? So it really does depend on where you live. And then again, those influences. I think, again, in America, for example, if you see someone who comes from Africa, Nigeria, people come from the Caribbean, the Bahamas, Jamaica, they are better writers because they literally are learning the King's English. In America, we have this incredible kind of, what do you call it when you have all the word vernacular, vocabulary, words that we use, and a lot of it is just the different cultural experiences that we have here from different parts of the world. That's why I'd say for us as descendants of enslaved Africans here in what we call America, it's almost like we've created and I don't use the term race because race is a construct, but it is a particular ethnic people now. You know, I think. And so in terms of Africa, you could be from Nigeria and they'll tell you, but you have a tribal affiliation. So you Igbo, right? I mean, for us in America, I guess we's Americans.
Yeah.
But people all over the world, I'm talking about all the African people all over the world that I love, they look at American. They look at American descendants of African slaves to really kind of drive the cultural piece anyway. You know, that there's certain things that that they see that we do, and we're able to promote that. But I had a dear friend, Chukwu Ogala from Nigeria, and we were talking one day. Boy, I tell you, because I got high. So we're talking one day, and Chukwu got frustrated. And Chukwu finally said, "You know, the problem with you American blacks is that you all are so condescending to everyone else. Why wouldn't we be? After all, no." So I think it's important that we do it. I think exposing people, but do not limit yourself to things like this is white culture. I mean, once you start, and I know we have been programmed to internalize racism, and this is controversial. I don't really care. No, I do care. I don't go to movies just because a black person's in the movie.
You don't?
No, that doesn't drive me to go see a movie, because black people have been in some pretty awful movies too, if truth be told. I know we're just happy you made it. Lord, thank you that you was able to make that movie, but that movie was garbage.
Yeah.
Okay. And then at the same time, so if you just enjoy movies, which I do, then I don't care who does the movie. Is it a good movie? And I think we have to look at that, whether it's art. That's why if you look at the Grammys and different genres are performing, people from those other genres appreciate it because they appreciate the music. And they know good music when they hear good music, and good music does not have a race. You know, when you begin to look at some of the songs that people did. So certainly it helps, but let's get back to where we started. As much as we can expose our kids to, my mother used to say you can go around the world in a book and find out that the world is bigger than your block. You know, that there's so many things out there that you can experience. That's why I love people who can live an eclectic lifestyle. I am too personally conservative to ever be one of those guys out there who was like a hippie. Imagine me as a hippie, the hippie dippy man.
Yeah, hippie dippy. That's what we say.
George girl. So anyway, this is the flu season. So before we even get to our discussion about the importance of one being receiving the flu shot, there are concerns that since COVID, and particularly, well, I won't just say in our community, in a lot of communities, kids are not getting their vaccine regimens. Why is that important that the young people get their vaccines?
Well, number one is to protect them from these diseases, these that we have out there, these viruses. And a lot of younger people, they never were exposed to those, so they don't know the devastation that they cause. They don't know that measles can be life-threatening or life-altering for those children for the rest of their life. And so we just see so much vaccine hesitancy now. There's false rumors out there about what vaccines do to children. And there's these big movements all over the country, but in Milwaukee, we definitely have seen a significant decrease in vaccinations. And then to go to school, your kids need vaccines to go to school unless there's a specific reason why, that they can become exempt. But, people say, well, my kids have never had this or that, and maybe not. But when you go to school, if somebody does get it, all those kids that are unvaccinated then are at risk. And not only they are at risk, then they're going to take it home, and you've got older people or people who have cancer or weakened immune systems that are now at risk for these diseases too that might kill them. But we just, for a variety of reasons, we're just seeing a lot of hesitancy now, and we need to educate people and help them understand why these vaccines are so important.
And you just does anybody know anybody? Do you know personally anybody who has polio or had polio in your lifetime? Now, there's some older people who are probably going back, but for those of us, certainly the boomers and beyond, have we seen polio?
Polio's made quite a resurgence. Well, it's always been more active in other countries, but
Right.
now because of we don't give that vaccine anymore, or that however, remember we all got our little polio,
Yep.
little
Got it right
polio imprints on our arm. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So in those countries where it's active, you know, with travel the way it is, we're starting to see more people, even in the United States, with polio, which is scary because we know how devastating that disease is.
And that's why I said these conversations have to be around medicine and science. I guess, oh man, right about long-term consequences of the COVID-19 vaccine. You know, we're gonna grow tails, and I mean
become infertile.
Some should be become infertile. I mean, just all these other things, and I just what is the word that you use? People can be very interesting what they say they will or will not put in their bodies.
Exactly, because they're putting everything else in there that we know has serious consequences.
Right. So a person could be and I'm not attacking them, just giving an example of what you're putting in your body. You could be a cigarette smoker. You're putting 400 different chemicals in your body just from those cigarettes.
And directly into your lungs.
Right. But you don't want to get a shot. And that's and again, we were just talking about exposure too. That's the benefit, and that's the curse of access to information. How individual views that information goes a long way. And then when you're able to get out and spread stuff that is not true, and most people are not going to go in and do the real research to say, well, what is the impact of this? What is the long-term kind of thing? And I think the other thing, when we were talking about polio, we talk about rubella, smallpox, all these different diseases, well, they're abstract in people's minds.
Right.
Because they haven't seen anybody get it until you get it. Right. So when I hear people say, well, I never got a flu shot and I never got the flu until you get it.
Right.
You know, because there's a randomness to a lot of this that kind of goes on. And I think that being able to understand and until you had the flu.
Right. When you've had true flu, you know you don't ever want to get it again. And we have people every year tell us that I had the flu and I will get my flu shot forever after this, because, you know, flu is not feeling bad for a few days. You know, a lot of people get a really bad cold and they're coughing and hacking. I got the flu. No, you got a really bad cold. The flu is going to knock you on your butt for a couple of weeks. You're not getting up and going anywhere. You're not going to work. You're really ill. And so many people think they've had the flu, but
I like the way
they
your
have
face
not.
looked when you said ill. Like,
Yeah.
you're really
You ill. You sick.
You
real
sick.
sick.
You sick.
Yeah. And, you know, and like with the COVID vaccine, flu vaccine, some people, I didn't feel good afterwards. Well, you know, your babies don't, right. Your babies don't feel good afterwards when they get their shot either, right?
Man, and they be loading up on
right.
them, man.
That's
It just be
building,
like,
that's just your body's is building up antibodies for it. That's a natural reaction. So when people would get the vaccine, I'm not getting that vaccine because, you know, I didn't feel good. I was achy and that, well, that's normal. That can be very normal.
it's like in sports, know the difference between an injury and playing hurt.
Yes.
This little momentary discomfort you have is nothing compared to if you get the flu. And, you know, and then we kind of had a flu kind of fell off of the radar because of COVID. And we had a couple years where there was no flu.
Right. I mean, so many people were, well, one, we had all these restrictions in place, but people that first year of COVID, I think we gave out more flu shots than we've ever. We we're going to talk about, we do free flu shots, but people would be lined up to get that because there was still this, COVID is just a bad flu. So we were getting a lot. But this year, we've seen more flu cases already than we've had last year. So it's not huge at this point, but it is more active than it was
And
last year.
Any given year, 15 to 30,000 people die from flu, from influenza.
And many more are hospitalized.
So
Hundreds of
explain
thousands.
when we use that big word influenza, what is influenza?
It's the flu.
It's a bad virus.
What's diabetes? It's the sugar. It's the sugar. You know what the sugar is, don't you?
That's right.
It's the flu. Okay. So what's the flu?
It's a virus. It is a virus, just like COVID was. It's a virus. It's a different type of virus. Colds are viruses. And this virus is named influenza.
We're inside Be Healthy, Be You. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Community Voice. And before we went to break, we were talking about influenza / flu, and it's viral.
And so antibiotics do not work against viruses.
Mm-mm.
And so that's why if you go to the doctor and you're sick and they won't give you antibiotics, don't be mad. Those antibiotics are doing you more harm than they are good. And so sometimes you can get a secondary infection, like a sinus infection, and then you might need antibiotics. But
So why did Dr. Morningstar give us tetracycline? Isn't that
not sure why they gave you tetracycline.
when we had colds? He did two things.
Was that years ago?
He gave you tetracycline and pure codeine.
Yeah. Oh Lord.
Whoa.
You know how many people
Yeah.
were faking colds, going in,
Right,
getting that
getting that
codeine? Ooh, but
I mean, again, we know better. We do now. There has been a movement in the last, I'd say, 5-6 years, where people used to go on, especially with kids. Oh, give them antibiotics. They got an ear infection. Doctors don't do that anymore because most of those are viral. They may treat the symptoms but parents, and especially initially, were really, really angry because they were so used to getting those antibiotics. Now doctors are saying they would do it to appease people. Oh, we'll give it. Maybe it'll help. But now it's like, no, we're not doing that, because what we have done is bred antibiotic resistance. So now we have bacteria that they look at the antibiotic and see like you can't do nothing to me because we bred that. Now some people you have to go on antibiotics, and some are even resistant to those, like vancomycin, but there's a lot of complications that come with taking those antibiotics.
So in part of treatment of the flu, what is Theraflu?
Theraflu is just treats the symptoms.
Okay.
Those things they treat: the congestion, the mucus, the swelling, the pain, the inflammation that you have in their body. So they usually have all of those have either ibuprofen, Tylenol in them. They have a decongestant. They might have an expectorant in them. They're all to treat the symptoms. So you treat the symptoms while your body deals with the virus, and the virus has to run its natural course. So people feel better, but the virus still has to run its natural course.
And so the difference between that and a bacterial infection, because is there? I know you'll correct me. There's two types of pneumonia I know of. There's bacterial pneumonia, and then there's viral pneumonia, right?
Sure.
Yes.
And so when you're treating the bacteria pneumonia, you're using the
And
antibiotics.
use antibiotics. That's the same with ear infections, sinus infections. They can be either viral or bacterial. Sore throats can either be bacterial, like a strep throat, or they can be viral.
So I think a lot of times when people are saying, here's the other thing, let's get back to things that we call flu, where people are vomiting, they are having diarrhea. A lot of times what we call the flu is usually some foodborne bacteria that's getting into our
Or
GI
there
system.
are viruses that attack the GI system. So you'll get that diarrhea, nausea, vomiting. Again, that's, people say they got the stomach flu, but it's not, has nothing to do with influenza, which is respiratory. But even with the flu, if you're really sick, even with influenza, you can still get some diarrhea and things like that. Your body is overwhelmed. Your immune system is really doing everything it can to get rid of that. The runny nose, that's your body's way of trying to get rid of that virus out of the nose. All of those things those symptoms are your body trying to fight off the disease. So
let's fight the flu. And not only are you protecting yourself, but you're also protecting other people that you are around, like the little babies and children that you could be in contact with, the seniors and people that do have chronic diseases and maybe fighting cancer or something. And so you want to stay healthy for the people you love.
What is the long-term impact of influenza? Is there some long-term? I know using terms out there now, long COVID.
Mhm.
Would there be an equivalent to that in terms of influenza?
Well, the biggest thing is if you have other underlying health issues, and the flu can exacerbate those. So let's say you have asthma or you have some other, lung disease. The effects that can really affect that and can cause more scarring to your lungs and things like that. So not just in itself that flu, of course, we know it can cause death.
I was gonna say, yeah, long-term
We know
death.
it can cause death, right? So, right.
All I know is
Is
he did.
He did.
He did.
And he's not alive
He
anymore.
ain't live anymore.
You guys gonna start that again? Wow.
As my colleague said, he was fatally shot and he died.
Right, right.
And he died.
And he died.
He was fatally shot.
Fatally shot and died.
Would that be Michelle? Would that be Michelle that said that?
You know, I've slipped and done it too.
Right.
Like he got fatally shot. What happened? Yeah, he died. Because I went to medical school. He died.
He died.
He died. I was talking to a guy Saturday. He told me, and I should have known he was vaping. He told me, he said, I died. And for 2 days, I was dead.
Oh.
I said, well, I'm glad I didn't go to 3 because then I'd have to worship.
Right.
If you're only dead for 2 days and you got him out for 3 days,
Ooh, that's it.
Y'all terrible.
We are.
Oh Lord, I didn't know. I didn't recognize you.
He only acts this way when you say that. Other than that, he's usually on good behavior.
Dog said he was dead for 2 days. I was going like, well, should I be worshiping you?
Right. Give it another day, Keith. Give it another day.
How did he look?
He looked alive.
Right?
Who knows?
Who knows? He wasn't 2 days ago though. I mean, what
He
you
didn't
did,
look like
the
he had
last
moved back no stones or nothing.
Right.
Right.
He could be Haitian. He could be a zombie. I
Fingernails
don't
all
know.
messed up from digging.
You know, the news people, they ain't that good either. They'll say, well, we don't see the morgue people here,
Right.
so we'll see the
That's
coroners.
right.
Yep.
We don't see the
You didn't see
coroners
that.
here.
Yes,
I'm
the
like,
corner.
Yeah.
That mean nobody died.
that's terrible.
Mhm. I know. They do say that all the time.
'Cause
And if they do see it, then
you think somebody died?
yeah,
You think somebody
probably.
you think somebody-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told people, like, I'm not superstitious. One of my worst nightmares is to go in and you have an open coffin and the person gets up out the
cough,
coffin.
right?
It's like, whoa!
I'll drink to that. I'm gonna have a cup of coffee.
Yeah, that would not be fun.
Would that get you to somebody's church?
Yeah, it would be that, and people would be lined up around the mini blocks.
My mother used to say about Benny Hinn. She said if he could heal so many people, why don't he go to the hospital?
Okie dokie.
Your mom.
She was right on it, wasn't she?
Right, if he's able to heal, I think there's some people in the hospital who love to
Come by.
He's at the wrong place.
Uh-huh.
Over there
Pretty
laying
sure there's some
hands.
doctors that would like to use your help too.
That's why I love black preachers. Black preachers are black preachers. You gotta love black preachers. I heard this many years ago because black preachers can get deep. It said that when Jesus went to Lazarus' tomb,
Yeah.
there was a whole lot of other people there.
Yep.
He couldn't just say get up because everybody would have got up.
You had to call him by name.
Right. No, I wasn't talking to you.
I wasn't talking to you, Brenda. I was talking to Lazarus.
You lay back down. I'm talking. You're all terrible.
I wasn't talking to you.
You're like, I didn't mean to bring all that up.
Definitely wasn't talking to you.
There's some folks who should definitely be where they are. I was not talking to you.
Get back down.
Take your butt right back.
Are you kidding me? You know good and well I wasn't talking to you.
So if you get a flu shot,
All of this came from the flu shot.
Oh man.
oh my
but
God.
I do want to add to that too that we know when you get the flu, you get a lot of inflammation in your body because your body's trying to again kill it. But that also leaves, if you've got inflammatory conditions already going on, autoimmune diseases, things like that, can kick that stuff into high
And
gear too.
I think that that's what's so important now around these discussions. I don't remember us talking about the flu shot prior to COVID and talked about things like comorbidity.
Mhm.
You know, we
Yeah.
and so when I was talking to a guest yesterday, and I was saying, you know, there were some blessings from COVID. And one of those things was just even how we discussed the disease and start talking about, because my buddy died because of his comorbidities, right?
Mhm.
Right.
He was able to get through COVID, but once that virus had passed, it so depleted him, he got a lung infection, the body couldn't fight it.
Mhm.
So our comorbidities, those morbidities being sickness, disease. Now, you don't want to move from morbidity to mortality, because what happens when you move from morbidity to mortality?
You die.
You die.
Yeah.
There you go, Keith.
And do you be dead?
And you're dead.
And you dead.
And you're dead.
Wow.
Debo, get up. Call welcome to the program.
All right, Keith. All right, Keith.
Debo, come forward. I just said Debo. I didn't say Brenda. I didn't say Julia.
Right.
Call welcome to the program. Good morning.
And good morning, good morning. You all are so hilarious this morning.
Yeah.
This is Mother Debbie Youngblood once more.
How'd the turkey dinners go?
Oh, that went just extraordinarily beautiful.
Good.
Yeah, toward that afternoon, people were saying that they heard it on WNOV and they come flying for there. Yes, well, thank you for announcing that for me. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Even though I didn't see neither one of you all, but thank you.
Oh, throw a rock. Why don't you hide your hand?
That's what everybody always saying. Deb, I was throwing the flood down or somewhere.
You know how to give a compliment.
No thanks to you.
But I'm sorry, you all had me hilarious this morning. You hear me? I was just thinking about what Keith was saying. And my dad, I had an ear infection. And at the county hospital, they gave me some injections and stuff and told them to take me home and that I'm going to be sleeping a lot. So they took me home and my dad came over to the house. He looked at me and they said that I looked like I was deceased. He started crying. He said, Deb, he said, if you die, I'm going to kill you. I heard those words in my ear and I woke up and everybody in the room started laughing and stuff. And this one old lady said, you all get out of here. Get out of here. If you die, I'm going to kill you.
You die, I will kill you.
Yeah.
Sound like a threat my mother used to make. I'm going to kill you before somebody else will, right? Oh, okay. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.
And you think it's true?
Right. Depending on
If you
depending
die,
on
I'm
your
going to
mom.
kill
Right.
you. What?
Oh, Lord, but that thought never left my mind to this day. If you die, I'll kill you. How you going to kill me? I'm already dead. Oh, Jesus. I said, Lord, I got to call in today. I wasn't going to call. I just going to listen to you all to my house first.
Oh, man,
But my
appreciate
second incident is my uncle used to work in a funeral home in Gary, Indiana.
Mhm.
I'm not going to mention the funeral home. Well, he's gone, bless his soul. And he gets tired of the children after school coming in there, messing with the deceased bodies that's in the caskets, and they look at him. So one day, and I'm always was afraid, I stayed back in the building, and I'm always afraid. So this one girl said, oh, he's so pretty. bet you won't kiss him. She said, yes, I will. She said, I bet you $1 you won't kiss that man. That girl knelt down there and kissed that man, and all I saw was arms wrapped around the girl. You know, people
That would have killed me.
Adults was in there too. They screaming, knocking down chairs, getting out of there, and stuff. And then being trying to let the girl go, she done fainted and on the floor. And he's standing up with his hands across the chest, turning around looking at everybody. And honey, just talk about that till this day.
And when nobody in there messing with those bodies
That's right,
anymore.
That was it.
No, honey, nobody coming in there. That funeral after school anymore. All this stuff messing with some bodies and stuff. Herman said, that'll teach them a lesson. Don't be coming in and messing about bodies. We done fixed them up real nice. But the one that was kissing Herman, my uncle, I felt so sorry for her. I thought they had to take her to the hospital. It took her
I bet.
to kind of get her back together.
Mm-hmm.
And when she turned around and looked, she ran.
I bet she did. Faster than she's ever ran before.
But we ain't superstitious, right? So we ain't superstitious, though, right?
We have I don't know what it was that day.
Man, we get and you know what's so morbid about me? I love cemeteries. I love visiting cemeteries. I really do. It's something about the serenity in there, and then just the landscaping that you see at a lot of these cemeteries. And I love going to Arlington. If I'm in Washington, I go to Arlington. I just think because it's in a hill. And actually that land that Arlington is on was owned by General Robert Lee. Right. And they compensated it during the Civil War. So there's a fort there. But all right, appreciate you, dear.
Oh, question. Are you going to get a flu shot, Miss Deborah?
I heard about that one with you guys, and I had one once, and I was told I was so allergic or something to it, almost died. And I never took another one, which they asked me in Milwaukee, the doctors, and say, we see on your record that you... there's some kind of word they use, but I call it allergic, And they say, well, we have something you can take by mouth, So I don't know what it is. I took that and still got sick. Now,
you're gonna get sick. Did you get the flu?
Yeah, that's what I start understanding then.
That you get it. And even then, this is what the whole thing about COVID. When you get the vaccination from COVID, it doesn't mean you won't be exposed to the virus and the virus won't get you. It's just the outcomes are going to be very different if you had the vaccination as opposed to if you didn't have the vaccination. Like people still get sick. And they go, well, it didn't say you weren't going to get sick. It says you're not going to get as sick as you could possibly, because again, 30,000 people can die from the flu. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, because I know one that was in the singing field, and I think she was a manager of her group. And her husband took her to the doctor, and she got a flu shot. And the next moment, I think that night she didn't feel good, but I think that next morning woke up, she never woke up. He tried to wake her up, she never woke up.
Well, here's what I would advise you not to do. Don't get your shingles shot. Your COVID shot on the same day.
All at one time.
Oh my God, man.
That immune system is in high gear.
Not to feel like my arm was getting ready to fall off.
I believe it.
Yeah, but and really, we're talking about influenza, but people over a certain age, you really should be looking at shingles too, because you don't want to get shingles at an advanced age.
Yeah, they recommend 50 and over now.
Yeah. I've seen that happen with shingles with someone else, and I really felt so sorry for her.
Yeah, shingles can be very devastating.
She was old age too.
Yeah, my young appreciate you. We thank you so much.
Thank you. What's fascinating is that I think we learned a lot from COVID in terms of who should get what. I think, what in the hysteria that was going on, people are dying and we tripping, right? So everybody should do this? No. What I'm saying we, like I'm an epidemiologist. But what was discovered was that younger people had better outcomes, right? Because their bodies were, their immune systems was. So, the idea, maybe now they're looking at it differently. Do you give a 5-year-old a COVID shot? Saying no, because the outcome is probably going to be very different than someone who's post 60, someone who's dealing with comorbidity, right? I don't want to put misinformation out there.
Well, they do still recommend a COVID shot for kids, but a lot of the, especially when kids are in school age, they're going to school and they're exposed, and they may not get as severely ill, but they still get ill, and then they can pass it on to other people. And we do know children who have comorbidities, or some underlying health issues, because then, again, inflammation in your body, your heart, your lungs, your brain, all of those things. So they still do recommend it. But the likelihood of a child, I shouldn't say child, because we had a lot of sick babies with COVID, a lot of young children when we had COVID.
Many of them survived.
A lot, but we had some pediatric deaths here in Milwaukee from COVID. But it still can cause long-term, I think I've talked about my niece on here, who's now 44, has significant damage from COVID, and it's changed her life a lot. And it's very heartbreaking, but, we want to do the best that we can with the knowledge that we have. If you have concerns about flu, COVID, any vaccination, talk to your doctor about it. If you feel like you shouldn't get it for a particular reason, you should talk to your doctor about that, because there are circumstances. If you have an active autoimmune disease that's active at the moment, maybe you would, you probably wouldn't get that, because that kicks up your immune system and might make it worse at the time. So you really want to have those discussions with your doctor if you're not sure.
Are you all doing flu shots?
We are.
Matter of fact, tomorrow we're doing them at St. Francis Hospital from 10 to 3 for free.
St.
And then next week is St. Joe's
From,
Wednesday, right? 10 to 3.
And then you'll be there at Wednesday, October 2nd, Wednesday, October 16th, Wednesday, November 6th. And the times are 10 to 3. But they say the best time to get your flu shot is before the end of October. But if you don't make it till then, get one anyway.
We still want you to get it, because the flu season is long. But for these are free flu shot clinics that we're doing. So you don't need to have an insurance card. You don't have to have an appointment. For St. Joe's, we will be, and there's a little to the left of the registration area at St. Joe's is where we'll be. All you got to do is show up and come in. And we have both regular dose and as well as high dose for those people 65 and over.
And I know I do it anyway. I usually get my flu shot on the air.
Yes.
So I guess that'll be happening in the next couple of weeks.
We're getting you, Keith.
Okay.
And anybody else in this building that would like one.
Yeah,
of course, we encourage everyone, but
Swing low.
did somebody hear something? I don't know what that was.
I'm looking at this one of the great soundtracks, Claudine, which was done by Curtis Mayfield, and the song that was in my little mind was "Make Yours a Happy Home." Wasn't that from Claudine?
That's where it comes from.
Yes.
Make yours a happy home.
Y'all don't know about that.
While we're waiting for that, I also want to put a plug in for our diabetes program, our under 8 program that starts the 25th, I believe. And if you're interested in that, let me give you the number for that. That's for those, it's an 11-week program, those that are that have an A1C 8 or above. You go home each week with 5 prepared meals. You get lots of education. Nancy and I are the 2 people doing the education. There's all kinds of benefits to being a part of the program. I was waiting for you.
You shouldn't have did that, because once she goes on the music, man, she's gone.
Okay, all right.
She was getting the number, I thought.
Yes, I am. I'm getting the phone number.
Music too. So
Here, Oh, that's because she sent it to both of us. I'm like, where is that phone number? 414-465-4460.
Can you
And
repeat
just,
that?
Yep, 414-465-4460. And just leave a message that you're interested in a diabetes program. Thank you.
Sure did, because Nancy Lehman sure did tell me when I saw her last Wednesday. That's her program.
Yes.
You're listening to Community Voice. We're up on the last break of the program. We'll be right back.
So long as there is peace with you, that's all I can do. So let us make your
Sound like my
listen.
mother talking to her grandson.
Wrap it up.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Debo, where you going? I didn't call your name. Let me thank you, Ms. Julia Means, Ms. Brenda Buchanan. Debo, thank you. Michelle, thank you. Carby, thank you. What up, Jay? Hey, good Lord willing, Creek don't rise up to talk to everybody tomorrow. And as always, go for this place of peace.